Proteus Motion is a sports science lab in a box. It's a completely different modality of training and something that you can't replicate with any other machine. We've proven through various laboratory testing that the muscle activation you get from three-dimensional resistance compared to existing methods produces much more muscle activation, giving you a more efficient workout. Anytime you move the machine, it directly opposes your motion. The hardware takes a lot of CAD, and the CAD is really where Solidworks comes in. We needed surface modeling, we needed more advanced features, we needed Hole Wizard, we needed things like that. We were in COVID times. I found out about the 3D Experience version of Solidworks at that point. And once I saw what was being built, I was like, okay, this is exactly what we need. We needed some type of cloud-based platform, and that it's running Solidworks is the best of both worlds.
We got really good at being able to work together remotely through the platform. It's great to be able to open up design together, look through it, and kind of go through everything live. The capabilities of Solidworks are pretty limitless for us in terms of the modeling, the drawing, of course, and then the management side of things.
Something that's available in Solidworks that helps to alleviate the stress in my day would be being able to manage that lifecycle stuff right from the side panel. So I'm in a model and I can make a change, I can save it, I can get that little check mark that it's saved to the cloud, and I can let Paul know, like, hey, model's good, and then he's got every up-to-date change that I've made in the last 5-10 minutes on that model.
We needed rendering capabilities and FEA capabilities.
FEA simulation has definitely been a huge help for us. As you can imagine, and having professional athletes on this machine, it undergoes a lot of force.
There's probably 300 unique parts in this, and then each one is used multiple times. So with simpler CAD platforms, that just breaks them, and then it also gets really confusing with mates and constraints and things like that, which is kind of another reason why I liked Solidworks, is it worked much better with larger assemblies than kind of what we were using beforehand.
It's just been that much easier with my collaboration with Paul, especially those drawings in the beginning, getting those done as fast as possible so that we can really start working with an external manufacturer.
When I think about where Proteus is going next, I, one, see a continued growth of machines across the country. I also see the ability for us to make some really cool design changes to it that we haven't been able to focus on just because small team. Solidworks is going to help us in that journey and seeing how they play out on the product through the model.
We're always going to make improvements, even things down to like our packaging and how the user experience of unboxing it gets. All of those things we design in SolidWorks, it's going to have a huge effect on everything for us moving forward for getting a better customer experience.
It seems like a lot of the enhancements are really focused on the users and making the workflow easier, just little things here and there that simplifies the modeling process, and it's making it easier for me to model.
The enhancements, it's always the backbone of what drives everything.
I'm super excited about the enhancements to the sketching and part design, as well. Sheet metal had a lot of great enhancements. The assembly updates that they made was very impressive. Large assemblies, some of the display state updates they made.
The most focused feature for SolidWorks 2025 is Visualize. Visualize will have an enhancement where it's almost like a much easier preview window.
The visualization tool is using performance. Right click or left click inside the tool. It gives you options to do things without having to go outside the tool.
Everybody applauded, in there once all the engineers rolled out these advancements.
Anytime you hear applause, it's a good thing.
The ability to put a relief into a bend line, so that way you can denote where the bend is actually going to go versus having to insert the bend itself. We do a heavy amount of sheet metal. It would be very useful for us.
The new notch feature for bend lines in the flat pattern can be very useful, especially when you're trying to increase productivity for your fabricators. It also helps give them a visual line of sight on that bend line that they're getting ready to bend this flat profile into a shape to them have more confidence about their job on the shop floor.
There's a new document group capability that allows you to say, the next time I open SolidWorks, I want to open every one of these files. You can curate this list and you can say, group these all together so that the next time I launch SolidWorks, I can just say, open this set of documents, and it'll open them all at once, rather than having to go to the file menu, open recent documents list, and pick them one by one.
I like the reattach features, having more functionality to auto retouch, and you get dangling drawings and dimensions, especially as you update drawings. I think that's going to be very helpful to my whole design process.
I'm eager as heck for SolidWorks 2025 to come out.
It's really refreshing to know that their R&D team here at Dassault, they take all this feedback very seriously, and they're probably crunching code right now to, make it so.
There's always adaptations, changes, development, evolution that takes place that allows any user of any software, and especially in SolidWorks, to be able to grow with that software, to become more efficient, to make their life easier and help make them as a company or a person more productive.
I think people should upgrade to 2025.
Welcome to What's New in SolidWorks 2025, hosted by SolidWorks Live. Today we are hosting several technical product experts as well as leaders within SolidWorks R&D who will be exploring each major area of SolidWorks CAD. We'll be uncovering many of the biggest enhancements within the SolidWorks 2025 release. Now, if you've watched SolidWorks Live before, you've undoubtedly heard me say this before, that in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, the coolest part about SolidWorks is you guys, the millions across the globe who use it. I saw people from the United States, Canada. I asked just in the chat a moment ago, where are you guys from? And this year, we are proud to spotlight as our feature customer for the SolidWorks 2025 release, Proteus Motion. In SolidWorks 2025, we trust that you'll enjoy for many months and years to come new features and improvements that will help you accelerate your product development with tons of designer-driven enhancements to the industry standard in collaborative 3D design. In Proteus Motion, we saw a company with a similar drive for its own customers, helping trainers, coaches, fitness advocates, professional athletes, and many more help themselves and others reach their health and wellness goals by helping them measure, build, and form personalized plans around strength and power output. We are so proud to be a part of their journey in so many ways. Just as the fitness world has evolved through the years, so has how we've delivered SolidWorks to you, our valued customers all across the world. Yesterday and yesteryear, the only way you could catch what's new in a yearly installment of SolidWorks was to head out to an in-person What's New event or scroll through our lengthy What's New in SolidWorks PDF files. Now, to be clear, today, you can still do those things with a full slate of resources available at solidworks.com/what's new. But we are also super thankful to the thousands of you that tune in for this very special episode across the entire globe every year. Once again, whether that's from the United States, India, Pakistan, wherever. And you think about the changes, right? Heck, even the way that people get SolidWorks has changed over the years in a number of ways that I think you'll be happy to hear about. Firstly, you can buy SolidWorks online. That's right. Via this simple address, you can buy licenses of SolidWorks quickly and securely on our website. And what you get with SolidWorks over the past couple of years has changed substantially as well. One area we may very well touch on again in our first segment with SolidWorks R&D leaders John Sweeney and Bruce Holloway is that the 5+ service pack updates throughout the year aren't just for performance patches and fixes. In fact, we've actually introduced hundreds of new functions and enhancements that were delivered in between the time we shipped SolidWorks 2024 for the first time up to the upcoming release of SolidWorks 2025, which in my opinion is quite a lot. So if you're in the chat today, like I saw Eric, Ivan, Andre, please give a +1 in the chat if you like any of these changes. And now, officially, it is time. Let's kick us off officially on this What's New in SolidWorks 2025 episode of SolidWorks Live. I would like to welcome on two longtime leaders within the SolidWorks R&D organization, John Sweeney and Bruce Holloway. What's going on, guys?
Hey, Sean. How you doing?
Hey, thanks, Sean.
I'm doing great. I love talking with you guys, especially this time of year with What's New season this year for SolidWorks 2025. People who have watched this episode, seen the promo materials, they know that talking about new features and such will be the major aspect, the pinnacle aspect of the episode today. But, whenever the three of us get together, whether it's at 3D Experience World or SolidWorks headquarters out in Massachusetts, we often talk as much, if not more, about R&D's commitment to software quality and performance. So, my first question for the two of you is, what kinds of strides have we made lately in that area?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it is, it's certainly been a focus. It's always a focus. Quality and performance is, at the top of our list, and we hear that from customers, right? We're meeting with customers, year round. The beta event you guys showed a lead-in video here. That's the best part of our job is when we're meeting directly with customers, and they'll tell us. They'll be honest with us and tell us, when something is, needs improving. So the quality, we've shown slides the past couple of years of the multi-year effort to drive down the customer bug backlog. And now we're at a point where the goal is to keep it flat, right? As a new bug comes in, prioritize it and work on it. Performance, another thing, we've always focused on performance, but we're doing it a little differently now. About 2 years ago, we started a performance initiative with kind of a two-pronged approach. The first being each area of our product was challenged with, deliver a big impactful difference. Right? And an example we have here, this is the SolidWorks Visualize product. Again, this is a multi-year effort where they replace the render engine. So they replace the entire render engine with the Stellar render engine, which is actually a DS render engine. So it not only gives us consistency across products, the performance is phenomenal. So this is real-time ray tracing, and you can see you can see the graphics here. There's no degradation, no pixelation, and it's real-time ray tracing. So phenomenal performance improvements here in Visualize. So the other piece, so that was the first kind of piece. Again, every team looking to what they can do to hit a singular thing. The other is a broad approach, and I really like this. Across all our teams, again, hitting all our teams, but a broad approach for our customers. So we went after workflows, all right? We identified, Bruce's team took on the challenge of, all right, let's find common workflows that customers do every single day. You can see that down the left over there. So assembly
Yeah,
structures, drawings.
I'm sure in our chat, John, there can't be a single person that hasn't done multiple, if they're using SolidWorks every day, multiple of these workflows
Yeah, I
every
mean,
single day.
that was the goal, right? And Bruce can
Yeah.
attest to this. Nick from his team, came up with these workflows, and you can see on the right, these are the steps, right? So this one has 21 steps of a common daily operation, and someone may be doing these steps over and over and over the course of a day or a week. But it also, drawings workflows, if you're someone who works a lot on drawings or modeling operations. There's a new multi-body workflow that we're working on. So again, identifying what are the things customers do every day and how can we make them feel it, right? How do you feel performance improvements in these common things? And it starts with customer models, right? So we have 14 really large customer assemblies and these realistic customer workflows. And we went after, you can see the next image, I think, has aggressive targets. So again, Nick from his team, so these are the 7 kind of first workflows we talked about, and you can see some timings there. So Nick did timings of every step. So this is the roll up, the assembly structure, the 21 steps roll up to 1,482 seconds. And Nick wanted a 30% improvement in that. And he wanted 60 on the mates workflow, and he wanted, 65 in modeling and sketching. So again, super aggressive target, right? And the nice thing is that Nick was doing this with his user hat on. He looked at it as, what does a customer expect? What would they want the performance to be? So no, preconceptions of what development could do, let's say, right? He just said, hey, I expect it to be this. So it was a really good back and forth. And again, this was a while ago. This is a year and a half ago, probably. And then the work that we've been doing in service packs and in the major releases, you can see on the right. So 2025 pre-release 1, SP0 will be coming out in November, the GA. Phenomenal results, right? I mean, really good. We haven't quite hit Nick's target on all of them, but we did on a couple. But just great improvements. And this is stuff that customers will feel day to day in their common stuff that they're doing. As well as the big impactful things like you saw in the visualized product. In the roll up here, you can see if you add this all together, put all these steps together, a 30.3% improvement in performance.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if I'm a developer, maybe I'm looking at the initial target. I'm like, oh no, how am I ever going to get to this? But like you said, I think I love that approach of kind of starting or grounding yourself on what you think a customer. You guys in the chat, I see a lot of +2s in the chat, not just +1s here for approval. But thank you guys for Carmelo, Jeff, Adam. I see all of you in the chat, just kind of chiming in, but. Like you mentioned, John, very, very aggressive targets and some pretty remarkable results that we're proud to share today.
Yeah, it was their data, customer workflows. We put in our targets and then we measured the results. So we're really excited about that because people are going to see the differences here.
Yep.
Awesome. Today, I mentioned it at the top. I mentioned it with my first question here. A large part of today, right, is about new features. We're going to see all sorts of new features within SolidWorks 2025. But can you guys, while we have our time together here during this R&D centric section here, can you talk to us a little bit about R&D's vision for the latest slate of enhancements that we're going to see in SolidWorks 2025?
Yeah, I think I'm glad you asked this question because, we talk about it a lot internally, right? The vision and where we're going and what we're doing, but I don't think it is always communicated to the customer community, the users. And I think, maybe one way to look at it is that if SolidWorks was a big ship, the vision is where are we taking the ship? Where are we steering the ship? And, the vision we have is to support our customers end to end, right? So from the early ideation or even marketing research through design, which is what SolidWorks largely focuses on, all the way through manufacturing and beyond, right? That's the vision of where we're trying to take the ship or our customers, right? And then within the ship, we have a lot of work to do, right? We just saw the performance stuff. There's quality stuff to do. There's performance stuff to work on. So we are, within the ship doing an awful lot of work within SolidWorks. We're not afraid to make big changes. The graphics overhaul you saw for Visualize, we also did that in the SolidWorks product a couple of years ago. So again, maintaining that ship, so to speak, or doing what's needed is really important. And part of the biggest, I'd say the biggest part is customer enhancements day to day, and that's driven by Bruce's team. Right?
Yeah.
What do customers want?
Yeah, and the team is really obsessed with enhancing the product, the ship, as John's analogy, in the way that our users want it enhanced. So to do that, we have to do a tremendous amount of listening. And the obvious ways are, the enhancement requests that we receive from customers. We got that vibrant community. We receive thousands. Everybody can see them and comment on them and like them for voting. And but we watch the forums too, because they're great discussions, user to user, where they're just kind of asking for help or asking how you do something. We can glean a lot of information where they're struggling, and so we get their needs, and we can include that in our decision making for what areas we need to enhance. And we're always out there visiting customers. We actually have a quota for everyone in PD to visit so many customers a year. We attend user group meetings. We listen to the VARs, the tech support team. And every new piece of functionality, major new piece of functionality, is alpha tested with customers, with users. So we make sure we just sit back and we watch them struggle when we tell them to try to do something that requires the new functionality. We don't help them, because we want to see if when they're on their own, they can effectively use it. So we get great ideas and tweak the UI and improve the project based off of that feedback. But one other thing I wanted to mention is, because it's kind of special, is our 3D Experience World Top 10 list, because we've been doing it for years. And it's a special forum we open up in November, leads up to World, where users can put their ideas for enhancements and vote on them. But we are on the hook to present at World what we have done with all these enhancements. And we do live, and we do take Q&A. We have GP and Manish in the room too, John and I, and we put ourselves on the spot, and we have a great history of implementing those ideas.
Yeah, let's take a look at my screen if we could. I have a quick graphic. Those who are unfamiliar out there with our forums, as you've said, Bruce, you can go through a number of hyperlinks here. It'll get you to this sort of effectively the same place, but 3ds.com/3dswim. The arrow is pointing at the SolidWorks enhancement ideas community, which is open year round. But we also see the top 10 lists forum, as we call it. We have the user forum where many of you post. I know I see a lot of names both in the chat that I also see on 3D Swim within the user forum to ask questions and get feedback directly from users. And you can also just go to solidworks.com/forums. It'll kind of take you directly to that forum space. But one of the benefits of this sort of 3D Swim area that we have is that all of the areas that we just mentioned, or that Bruce, you just mentioned, namely, are actually available on the left-hand side navigationally. So you can just click and go right to the targeted community. So very interesting. Yeah, you guys keep busy for sure. You mentioned 3D Experience World. Getting together with customers is a huge, I know, a huge initiative for you guys, because you can get that in-person feedback, kind of see their mannerisms. Where do they click first? Where do they try to venture for a menu option or a targeted feature first? Did they struggle, like you said? And I know from a UX perspective, I've talked to Kevin Burney and others that work on the UX side here at SolidWorks. That's of humongous benefit. So awesome. So yeah, if that isn't enough of a plug, by the way, to head out to 3dexperienceworld.com. We're having 3D Experience World 2025 in Houston. There's a lot to see there, a lot of exciting people to meet. And once again, another great way to get your feedback.
I'll add my 2 cents for that. It's the best time of the year where, again, we interact directly with customers. We get feedback. You can feel the energy. And for us, selfishly, we get a lot of input. But I think for customers as well, there's the same thing. There's feedback they can give to us, but a lot of relationships are built, and between teams, and it really, again, it helps really improve the product. So I appreciate everyone who goes there, and I encourage everyone to try and go or participate in, any of the on-site betas that we do, forums, as Bruce has said. All really good input. We appreciate all of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for jumping on. And of course, thank you so much for all the work that you do around the year with the SolidWorks product. And like we said, far beyond. We'll be seeing you, if not before then, we'll definitely be seeing you at 3D Experience World. So thanks for jumping on, guys.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Sean.
All right, so it is time to get into the new stuff here. The enhancements, right? The new features. So with SolidWorks 2025, a big focus of our efforts has been finding ways for you, our customers, to accelerate and actually in some cases straight up automate aspects of your design process so that you can get your ideas and products created faster. And here to show us how today when it comes to part design is SolidWorks expert Mark Peterson. Mark, what's going on, man?
Hey, Sean, how's it going?
It's going great. So Mark, I mentioned a big focus of SolidWorks 2025 is accelerating the overall design process. Can you unveil a few ways that we're doing that within the part environment in SolidWorks 2025?
Sure, yeah, absolutely, Sean. So I'll start with this assembly. I know it's a weird place to start if we're talking about parts, but you'll see where I'm going with this in a second. So you'll notice this assembly is in the Y-up orientation, but what if we want Z-up? So in SolidWorks 2025, you can now choose either Y-up or Z-up orientations when you're creating a new part or assembly document. So moving on here, let's just quickly add a few chamfers. In 2025, it makes it easy because we now have the selection accelerator toolbar for chamfers. So similarly to fillets, you can now select multiple edges very quickly. And now that this part is ready to be simplified, in the past, we had a single defeature method, but now we have a new option, which is silhouette geometry. This is in parts. And we can create simplified models based on the outline of the bodies. So each simplification method that we can use here adjusts the overall part detail. So from cylinder to polygon outline, we have tight fit outline, and even an option to keep the internal loops. So like things like holes, for example. If we wanted to send this to a vendor for quoting, maybe we'd save it as a new document. Or if we wanted to replace it as a simplified version in an assembly, we could create a new configuration, for example. So moving on to this next multi-body part, this needs some finishing touches. And in 2025, it's easy to check a part's performance now that we have graphics triangle and face count here. And they basically just kind of tell us how complex the part is. This part has over 26,000 triangles, which means that curved faces appear smooth, but it also means that maybe the part performance is reduced. Sometimes faces with tight curvature are a common culprit, and this variable fillet is a little bit pinched. So in 2025, I'm going to use the new continuous edge blend option to kind of smooth that out. Now, before we finalize this part evaluation, we can see that there's a sketch pattern that has a high rebuild percentage. Sometimes moving the rollback bar below these items will require like too much computer resources. So in 2025, we can delete features below the rollback bar, which is a right mouse button. So, and I'm not sure about you, Sean, but this happens to me all the time. Moving the rollback bar, sometimes you get a sketch error. And now in 2025, we can easily correct this with automatic repair, either through a right mouse click or through the display delete relations property pane. So that's pretty nice too. Now, I want to move on quickly to sheet metal and weldments. Our goal with this part is to finalize some details before we send it to our team for review. I'm going to add a new cut list item called process. And now in 2025, you can copy one cut list item property to all cut list items or specific ones. So doing this the old way of manually copying and that sort of thing would have taken a lot longer. So. New in SolidWorks 2025 also is the bend notch feature. We've kind of talked about this already on the stream, but bend notches are going to let you streamline your manufacturing processes by creating physical marks on the sheet metal body. So it's easier for the operator to kind of line up those marks in like a press break. So there's different sizes available, and you can just adjust that as needed. So the tab and slot workflows have also been improved. So we'll add some tab and slots to this sheet metal part. There is now an option for the equal offset tab and slot where you can do equal spacing. So this allows you to offset the pattern from the extents of your selected edge. So that's pretty useful. The right-hand side of this part, we want to make it a little bit different so it's obvious what orientation it should be in. In 2025, there's a new center align option, and that places the tabs symmetrically along the center of that edge. And 2025 also introduces the ability to skip instances for tab and slot, which is one of my favorite sheet metal enhancements this year for sure. So, we can flatten that. Obviously, we can see the result there. The final operation for the sheet metal body is to add edge flanges to close it off. In previous versions of SolidWorks, you could create edge flanges of equal length in the same operation. That wasn't a problem. But if you wanted different lengths, you'd have to go in and edit the flange profile. It got a little messy, not that bad. But in 2025, this is streamlined. You just simply click on multi-length flange and you can adjust the length as necessary. So it's a really huge improvement. Our part has several welds in place, but some haven't been completed. So we want to create a weld that fills a gap between this chamfered edge and this plate. And SolidWorks 2025 introduces groove bead to accurately represent these weld types. And we can even define a weld symbol on the fly. So now, obviously, a single weld isn't sufficient, so we want to mirror that. In 2022, we introduced the option to use multiple planes or faces when mirroring, as well as the handy Q key. So that just makes this super easy to finish off this part. So these are just a small selection of the enhancements to part and sheet metal and weldments in 2025. There's plenty more, so definitely check out your reseller's What's New event for more.
A lot to cover there. You're cooking there, Mark. I didn't want to interrupt you. But yeah, we actually, the two of us, we joined the SolidWorks Champions call. So if you are a SolidWorks champion, you know what I'm talking about. So it's a call hosted by Matt Clegg. I remember the smoother variable radius fillets was a big one. I know people called out during that call. It's a standard Zoom call, by the way. So anyone kind of unmute and ask questions, make comments. A lot of comments in the chat. Z Up Wisconsin GoPro goalie. I like your name, I guess. I don't know exactly where it's sourced, but Z Up orientation making machinists happy. I see that in the YouTube chat here. Just kind of looking at my phone. That's why I'm looking down. Big smiles from sheet metal enhancements. So yeah, a lot of great comments in the chat. Definitely keeping up with those. A lot of stuff about going to 3D Experience World too. So definitely check that out. But I wanted to mention, Mark, in terms of part design improvements, this is one area that I'm going to touch on that I haven't touched on ever before in the past. And it's a big area, an area that I'm sure a lot of us hear about every day, and that's AI, right? AI has been a big topic. And without spoiling too much, it's surely something that you guys are going to continue seeing implemented in various ways within SolidWorks products for years to come. And, we're just getting started there. But could you talk to us, Mark, about a cool new feature that we just got done demoing within our What's New in SolidWorks CAD video, the Command Predictor tab?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, this is one of the more interesting things that we're seeing right now. And so in its current form, this tool is just in the Command Manager. And what we're doing is we're using AI technology to predict what tools a user might be looking for, depending on their selection or workflows. So here's an example where I'm going to lightweight this component, and SolidWorks assumes I may want to use the slot tool. And so that's fine. Once the sketch is complete, it also correctly assumes that I want to cut through the solid material that I was just creating the sketch on. So that makes sense. Now notice the tools that are available now, and then how they change when I select the cut. I'm given different options like the linear pattern tool. So this is just a simple example of how intelligently placed AI recommendations could help us be more productive. There are a lot of AI projects in the works, so I hope everyone subscribes to this channel so they don't miss out on future live episodes. And also, check out 3D Experience World with us in February, so you can learn more about what's happening with AI and SolidWorks.
Mark, please grab some water. You just showed us we're about 20-ish minutes into the stream. You just showed us maybe about as many features and just with parts, which is crazy. Just with parts. So thank you so much for jumping on, always informing us about new features within parts, sheet metal, weldments, and more. So once again, thank you, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So as Bruce and John mentioned during the R&D kickoff portion of this episode, performance remains a key focus of our design-driven improvements for SolidWorks 2025. And in assemblies, we're providing some really awesome enhancements that will speed up your workflows across the board. Here to show us what's in store with assemblies in SOLIDWORKS 2025 is my colleague, Mike Sandy. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, what's up, Sean?
Glad to have you. Glad to have you, man. So, Mike, when we think about assemblies, just like parts, in a lot of ways, about as core SOLIDWORKS as you can get. And we've really made strides in speeding up assembly design overall in SOLIDWORKS 2025. Can you unveil some of the ways that we've done this in this newest release?
Yeah, I would love to. I think John and Bruce did a really good job articulating just the overall importance that performance in general is to our users, it is to the development of the software, and it's something that is focused on year over year. And I wanted to start with a project that actually started back in like 2022, 2023, and is wrapping up in 2025. And that's just so over the last several releases, we've seen the big strides in the automatically optimized resolved mode. I know that's a mouthful, but it's an important option to remember. So that multi-year product, it finished up this year, and what it does is it gives you a hybrid workflow between large assembly mode and fully resolved mode. And a lot of users out there may not even know what I'm talking about, and that's fine. And that's the whole goal of this project, was to give you the best of both of those worlds. Essentially, it's what's controlling what's being loaded into memory when you're working with your assemblies. Now, with this option enabled, which is a system option, you no longer have to manually change those to modes. You let SOLIDWORKS just do that in the background. I did it with the Proteus Motion 1,000-part assembly. I opened it in a resolve mode, and then I went and opened it in the optimized resolve mode, and it was 27% on the open time. And you're going to continue to see those improvements as you work up into larger, 100,000 part components, and as you're working with your assembly. So I wanted to point that out. Again, it was like a 3-year long project, finished up this year. Super awesome option. If you don't enable it, I highly recommend doing it. It's not on by default. So go again in the system options, performance, turn on that automatically optimized resolve mode. Now, the other thing, Sean, I wanted to point out was there's some other enhancements in 2025 that have been added to features that have been around forever. Like, do you remember when SpeedPack was introduced?
That's a great piece of user trivia. I would get wrong.
Yeah, let's see if anyone in the chat can answer it. I'll answer it at the end. So, when was SpeedPack originally? And I might be wrong too, but I think I got the right date. So anyway, in 2025. It continues to build on those features like SpeedPack and also large design review. So these are really great ways to offer performance increases in your workflows, depending how you do your assembly workflows in SOLIDWORKS. Now, SpeedPack configurations, if that's a new term for you, essentially, Sean, what that is like you get a graphical representation of a assembly or a sub-assembly, and you can pick and choose what you want to be part of that assembly. So you can select, components to be CAD and the rest of it geometry. 2025 really elevates how users use this. You can now insert a SpeedPack instance of an assembly or a sub-assembly when you're putting it into an assembly. Before, you'd have to proactively go in and create the configuration, save it, and then you'd have to go and change the configuration. Now this option lets you do it on the fly, and then it walks you through the SpeedPack creation. So here we're going through and we're saying, hey, you know what? I want these feet to be part of it. I want this top plate to be part of the CAD geometry. The rest, I don't care. Make it just visual, graphical. Really lightens this up. And then the nice thing is that this becomes saved to the top level. That's new too. So now if I open this up, we take a look, I no longer have a configuration of the file. It's saved in the assembly it's been created in. Another new enhancement, and you've been able to do this in the past, is being able to create a SpeedPack of a sub-assembly that's in an assembly. But you're going to have this new option to create the SpeedPack reference at the top level. So again, I'm not creating a configuration. I'm going to go through and let SOLIDWORKS determine what should be CAD and what should be just graphical geometry. And now all that data is saved up to the top level. So again, massive performance increases. We're getting rid of all of the CAD information we don't need, and we're just saving the CAD information that we do need. And again, that goes to the top level. So if you haven't checked out SpeedPack, or it's been a long time, go back. 2025 is the year of SpeedPack. See how that might enhance your overall assembly workflows and really lighten up those medium, large assembly performance. All right. Do we have any guesses in the chat on the year?
Oh yeah, that's you can see me looking down. I'm looking at my phone.
All right.
Yeah, we do. Do you want to know what they are?
Yeah, we can get a couple.
All right,
See if
so
anyone's
here
close.
I'll give you a few. 2008, 2009,
Okay,
2012.
2009.
Oh, there we
Those are
go.
good. Yeah, 2009. That was my notes. So we'll
There we
give
go.
2008 the credit too. And yeah, we've seen there's been enhancements throughout the year on it. This year, I think, is the year that you're really going to see that integration into workflows, because you can create the speed pack right as you drop it in. So, all right, good job, audience. Well
Very
done.
nice. And I do see a couple people in the chat, and thank you for contributing. I'm looking directly at my phone at the YouTube feed here, saying never used it. So yeah, it's
Nice.
true.
Yeah.
That kind of brings us to our next topic, right? And we talk with Bruce and John and other members of R&D about this a lot. Like they're always reminding us that just because you tried or just because you heard of a new feature or a new mode, like we were saying, it doesn't necessarily mean that you know how it feels to use it or leverage it today. You mentioned one you mentioned before we really dug deeply into SpeedPack was large design review mode, right? Which
Yeah.
has definitely in 2025 gotten a lot of love during this release. So can you, kind of like you did with SpeedPack, can you tell us a little bit about what large design review mode is and what we're now able to do within it beginning in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I think historically, large design review has been for kind of what it sounds like, right? Is just to review a design. So you can open up a file, you can change the mode type to large design, and this limits what you can do. So you can't do things like create mates, you can't access features, but you can measure, you can do walkthroughs, you can rotate and go through. So now in 2025, we have new enhancements like breadcrumb selections. And this is awesome because you can go through and navigate the hierarchy of that assembly. And 2025 also introduces that the component preview window as well for SpeedPack. So if you're not using this, this is available in just your regular assembly mode. But now with LDR, you can go through and select on parts, assemblies, or whatever random selection you want to grab from there. Open it in this little split screen, rotate it, move around, and it gives you kind of that dedicated monitor. And you can actually open from there as well. So yeah, we've got selection breadcrumbs and component preview now available. Now, you'll also see that interference detection in 2025 is now supported for that LDR mode. This is a really awesome enhancement if you're working on big assemblies. So like, if you need to check for major interferences or whatever, before you could only do this when it was resolved. Again, a little cumbersome for bigger assemblies. We'll see support here. A little caveat is there's going to be some tolerances in here to be aware of, but it will pick up those up. So like if you're doing large layout facilities or like robotics layouts and looking at movement through there, this is a nice enhancement to open those big assemblies, check for the interference, see what we got, and make the changes as needed. So I think that some users working with like medium to large assemblies are going to find that LDR offers a really great place to start off, right? I can open assembly in LDR, it opens in super fast, just a lightning quick open, using things like breadcrumbs to be able to navigate, find the component, and then you can open it resolved. In the little open window, there's a drop down, open resolved, and just start your work. So if you are working medium, large assemblies, go through, check out LDR, open those assemblies in LDR. You'll be amazed how fast they open. Find what you need, and then you can open it resolved and continue your work. Saves a lot of time just loading a ton of information into your memory that you really don't need to.
Awesome. I was just looking through some comments from the previous section. Someone saying SpeedPack is a hidden gem within SolidWorks, which is great to see. But Mike, I feel like I've constrained you a little bit, maybe over constrained to use a little bit of SolidWorks assembly fun here. But we've really been focusing primarily on performance oriented workflows, right? Which are great. SpeedPack, large design review, both worth taking a second look or a first look, like we said. If you've never used those modes, you can check out the SolidWorks help file. If you want to learn more about what's capable in those modes. But I know there is a large list of assembly enhancements. We saw a good bit of them, but there are many more. So let me ask you, like, before you go, do you have any other favorites? You can pick whatever you want. Any other favorites that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, it was a really tough one to whittle down. I wanted to grab a few more. I don't have the time to go through everything. So reseller events, give them a call, email them, see what they're doing. Live stream, some are live in person. Attend those. They're going to get into more of it. Also, the help guide, right? The what's new document. open up that assemblies tab, read through it, see what you think might be exciting to you. And then as you're working in 2025, you got the little question mark, the little help icon. That'll indicate too what's new feature and point you to where that information is. So I won't get into everything. You can find them a lot on your own, but there's two more I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So I know a lot of users use the display states to manage assemblies and how things are hidden and shown. This can sometimes be a bit of a bear to keep organized, right? If you have a lot of components, you want to hide and show things, and then you got to modify it. Well, new in 2025, you have this new display state table. And this is a nice way to manage all of what's shown and hidden in your assemblies as you're creating or managing these display states. So you basically come in, it lists every component in there. It lists anything that's attached to an existing display state. You can uncheck or check. It's going to hide and show, apply it, see what that does, how it updates, and click OK, and it saves that information to those display states. So this is definitely like a top 5 enhancement for me in 2025, because I leverage display states all the time, especially working integration with like visualize and rendering. It's a nice way to prep models and keep those managed. So the other enhancement that I wanted to mention, Sean, was document group, and we saw it in the preview video. I was trying to think of a software I use daily that does this, and I think like my browser, where if you open my browser, it goes to search, and I have some other tabs that you can save to come up. But like, I don't know, I couldn't think of any other daily software that lets me do this. So
It's funny because I think people will see with SolidWorks, you're kind of, the thing is, you were making Bruce and John mentioned this. You guys were making SolidWorks do this in a very manual way, or maybe through a macro, but we're actually just making it part of the software now, which I think you'll enjoy seeing.
Oh, right. Yeah. With their testing.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So the document groups in SolidWorks, that's a new feature. This is a really cool enhancement. What this allows me to do, or you to do, is go through, and when you go through a session and you open a bunch of files, assemblies, parts, drawings, or whatever, end of the day, or you go to lunch and you close everything out, come in, you got to reopen that. Kind of a pain. So now you can go through and create a document group. And this actually remembers all of those open files. You give it a name. And in that home or that recents menu, R key, you're going to be able to find that list and be able to open it. And it's going to load all of those right back into memory. This is actually a speed pack on the top level. I have a couple other assemblies. Again, it's supported for drawings, supported for parts. Extracts those, brings them in. So I don't have to go through and figure out all of those on the fly. This is really handy for starting off that day right where you left off. It's just a nice, it's assemblies, but it's also a user interface enhancement that I definitely wanted to show. So again, we're not getting into everything today. We don't have the time because there is a lot. So check out those reseller events, check out the help files. And dive into SolidWorks 2025. It's a really good release.
Awesome. It's always a joy. Like you said, this is one of the areas where, namely with assemblies, that is as core SolidWorks as it gets. And it's always great to have you on, sharing, dropping knowledge on us, Mike.
Yeah,
so
thanks, Sean.
Definitely appreciate it. And we'll have you on again soon.
Sounds good. See ya.
Designing faster, designing easier, more enjoyably, these are goals that our team here at SolidWorks keeps in mind at the forefront of our efforts pretty much year in and year out. But at the core of that goal is helping you and your teams deliver your innovative products faster while maintaining data integrity. And that's an important part of that statement. So here to talk about these integral facets of the overall design process and what we can look forward to with SolidWorks 2025 is Steve Fick. Welcome on, Steve.
Hey, Sean. It's good to be here. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. So, Steve, a lot of us have seen, those of you watching the episode surely have seen some of the Proteus motion footage from when we went out to Brooklyn in their headquarters to discuss and see how they're using SolidWorks and 3D Experience. When I was out there, I was wearing my SolidWorks shirt like I am today, and somebody actually stopped me on the street. This is a true story. Somebody stopped me and said, hey, do you work at SolidWorks? And the reason that person recognized is because they were an industrial designer, and because, of course, of SolidWorks's foothold in the product design space. Not necessarily, I should say, because we also happen to offer collaboration, lifecycle, or data management solutions, right? So in 2025, why do we offer these solutions in the first place? Maybe let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, to start, I'm a little shocked or taken aback that they didn't stop you for our collaboration and data management.
Maybe someday.
As a data management guy, it hurts a little, but I totally get it. But I think you're right. I mean, I think, our customers want to create and deliver amazing designs. And what I've personally seen over the years with customers as they're on this journey of 3D and whatnot is they also want to have a way to manage it and store it safely without creating overhead to that design process. And so, when you look at that and then combine that with this kind of confluence of tools that have showed up at the same time as wanting to be able to work remotely or being asked to work remotely, it's just really kind of it's a great time to be able to think about how am I going to access my data from anywhere and manage my design data and whatnot. And I think the beautiful thing about it right now is like you have options, kind of true to that SolidWorks spirit of whether you're ready for the cloud and want to look at the platform, or you still love or want to be kind of that on-premise approach with PDM Pro. We have phenomenal options either way right now.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, many of our customers, right, they leverage the solution that you mentioned, right? SolidWorks PDM today, primarily for on-premise storage and collaboration. Within the context of the SolidWorks 2025 release, can you talk to us about SolidWorks PDM?
Yeah, SolidWorks PDM continues to be an extremely popular tool, and frankly, has a really special place in my heart. I love that tool a lot, and I think a lot of our customers do as well. And I think it's kind of a testament to our commitment to it when you look at the amount and the number of enhancements that not only, when we look at what's new right now, but in that same kind of, you made that comment about how all these enhancements are starting to show up in service packs. Like there's big enhancements that are even coming to PDM Pro in every service pack. And so let me take a few minutes and just walk you through some
Sure.
of my favorites for this year. So one of the things right off the bat is just from a UI perspective. On the command manager, you can now add a SolidWorks PDM tab to your toolbar. It's fully populated with all those kind of common commands like the get command. And what's new about this in 2025 is one, kind of small, but we added the revision column. And two, anywhere you access the get command, you can now check out your designs. So it's a little thing, but it just completely streamlines, how you're accessing and working with your files. Another little UI enhancement that I really like is the browse to in a new window. I've always had the browse to command, but now it'll populate a new window and bring that up for you. And this is another big one. The bill of material on your design now matches the feature tree order. So now there's just a real nice consistency, avoids confusion. The two are in line. Speaking of the Windows Explorer environment, this is a little thing again, but it's one of my favorites, and that is regardless of where you put your search preview, the preview placement, either at the bottom or on the right, it's available in the search dialog and your normal interface as well. So, we have widescreen monitors. It's kind of nice to take advantage of that real estate. The other thing is, real quick on the bill of material tab, you now can export your bill of material with thumbnails. So this is really handy, especially if you have to hand that off to somebody, just to visually be able to see in that column. For the admins out there, I like this. The show log in, log out log is available right inside of the admin tool. And another quick one, because there are a bunch of nice admin enhancements here, is you can predefine what the bill of material view should be for your users. So, if you want to have a top level BOM and you wanted to hide tree, that way you can deploy it to all users and it's already preset. And if you do utilize Web 2, lots of great performance enhancements. It's kind of a theme broadly, I think we've been talking about this morning, but if you have like thousands of files, the browsing Web 2 is much snappier. So it's good. It's really nice.
Steve, I think I want to make you feel a little bit better about my earlier comment about people recognizing SolidWorks for the foothold in our design space. I saw the numbers ticking up on the number of viewers live. if you're watching live as you demonstrated some of these enhancements. So
Nice.
yeah, things are changing. But, very, very cool, man.
The tides are
So I
turning.
hope you're feeling a bit happier now. But you mentioned the element of choice earlier. Some of our customers are primarily leveraging a solution like SolidWorks PDM Pro for their on-premise data management needs, and some have cloud initiatives or are leveraging our cloud data management solutions. And viewers of SolidWorks Live, this program that we host monthly, they know because I practically mention it all the time, that beginning in July of last year, that all new and upgraded subscription customers gained access to cloud-based storage, revision, markup, and design sharing capabilities, all of which can be accessed inside of SolidWorks and outside of it via a web browser with cloud services for SolidWorks. So can you talk to us a bit about this, as well as some of the enhancements we're getting there this year?
Yeah, I mean, cloud services, I mean, frankly, you and I talked a lot about this last year, was kind of a game changer for customers when it came to being able to access the capabilities on the platform. And I think broadly for, companies like Proteus, those capabilities were kind of a light bulb moment where it was like, oh, I can, collaborate and I can share and I can manage my data all from anywhere I want to. So yeah, let's take a few minutes and just look at some of these pretty cool new enhancements. So one of the first ones, again, on this topic of choice, is the fact that if you're running SolidWorks connected and you enjoy the licensing and the deployment style of that, the PDM Pro add-in now will work inside of SolidWorks connected. So if your company is still utilizing that as their data management tool for whatever reason, you can leverage these two things together. And what's nice about this, we're talking about the share capability that was part of our announcement last year. This is still available. So if you need to communicate your designs securely with people outside, and you want to be able to not have to worry about them installing a viewer, you just simply want to share a link, you can do that. And they have the ability to rotate it, mark it up, get you the feedback on the design, etc. So it's this, again, really nice capability. This is probably one of my favorite ones, if not my favorite. And that is the fact that 3D Swim, which is our collaboration tool, now is fully integrated in the task pane. So you can chat with your colleagues right from within inside of SolidWorks. And that same share functionality is supported here. So Sean, imagine you and I having a conversation on this design. I shoot you a link, you do a markup, send it back to me, I make the design change, and we're facilitating this all right within the task pane of SolidWorks. Like that's really cool. This is one of my favorite enhancements. Another thing is real-time notifications. And so when you open a design that's stored on the platform, if it realizes that your local cache doesn't have the latest, you'll get notified. You can have it highlight which files are out of sync and have it pull those down for you as well. So just a handful of enhancements from the collaboration. There's been a lot over all the service packs and some really good ones, but I think these are some of the highlights, or at least my favorites. So
just want to give a quick shout out to a few people who joined the chat. So I see Juan, I see Kara, Grant, Hamdi, a bunch of people I met at World actually over the years. So
nice.
Great to see you guys. And I also want to tell a very short story as we end this section. When that functionality to have 3D Swim show up inside of SolidWorks, be able to view markups, communicate dynamically, etc. When that showed up, when it first showed up on our radar internally, you made a video and you shared it to everyone on our team, which I think for a given feature, you did that pretty immediately. And I don't recall you doing that with many features. You just made it and you shared it with just us. You're like, look at this. This is so cool. So I wanted to share that. You were genuinely very enthusiastic about that capability, which I love.
I think in this day and age where we're used to kind of that instant communication, instant feedback, and in whatever we're like, it opened the doors to a lot of really neat workflows and communication capabilities for SolidWorks users, right? Focusing on the design, but still having the tools available at your fingertips. So.
Very true, man. Well, Steve, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on. Give a +1 for Steve here in the chat. If you learned anything, I'm sure you learned a lot. But thanks for jumping on, and we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks, Sean.
So a lot of us know proper documentation of our designs is key to proper communication, really, right? And getting your parts from concept through to manufacturing and assembly. Now, whether your primary mode of documentation is 2D drawings, as it is for many of you out there who leverage parametric drawing capabilities in SOLIDWORKS, or DWGs and DXFs within a tool like DraftSight, or maybe 3D via model-based definition workflows, there's a lot to be excited about within SOLIDWORKS 2025. And here to provide several of our top enhancements in this category is my colleague here at SOLIDWORKS, Gian Calisi. What's going on, Gian?
Hey, Sean, just happy to be back on SolidWorks Live.
Absolutely, Colin, anytime. We just heard, I'm sure you just heard from Steve. He was discussing some of the integration between our design process enabling collaboration tools and SOLIDWORKS itself. And I understand, to kick off this section, that we have a major enhancement in this area, right?
Yes, we do. A pretty big one. A little earlier this year, we introduced the multi-approval stamping, which is basically, it's an option to have the title blocks of your drawings be updated automatically when those drawings progress through your team's approval process. So when you update the maturity state of your drawing in the database, that those drawings are updated for you with who it was drawn by, who it was checked by, who it was approved by, and of course the associated dates. So this is a huge time saver and a big convenience for those with very formal or mature engineering processes. And it just goes to show some of those leaps and bounds that we're making with integrating design and collaboration, like Steve was starting to talk about.
Sure, and I'm sure many of our application engineers in the chat, also many of our drawings users remember, defining title blocks and making it so that those areas were editable just via plain text. Now it kind of conforms to processes, which I think is really, really awesome and kind of what you want. Gian, when you think about SOLIDWORKS and SOLIDWORKS usage, I talked with Mike Sandy about how assemblies are very core to the SOLIDWORKS experience. I would say drawings are kind of similar. And in 2025, we're speeding up drawing creation and processing in several ways, right? So can you talk to us about just some of the exciting ways that we're doing that in this SOLIDWORKS 2025 release?
Of course. Yes, you're so right, Sean. I mean, drawings are such an important part of every engineer's daily life, and I have some really cool updates to share. The first enhancement that I wanna give a shout out to is the ability to reload drawings, which a lot of CAD programs offer. Sometimes you just want to discard any changes that you might have made and revert back to the last saved version on the disk. And we get a nice little handy menu alerting you of any potentially lost changes there. And boom, we're right back to where we started. We can keep editing. The next one is related to detailed cut lists, which have been an option in normal BOMs or bills of materials for a few years now, and they're particularly useful with assemblies that include welded components. But we've enhanced bills of materials and the detailed cut list option in there so much so that you could actually use that in place of a legacy cut list. And this year, we included a new option in detailed cut list where you can actually calculate the quantity based on the BOM quantity. So this is just another development to make it possible to do anything you can do in a detailed cut list in a normal bill of materials now. So you can take advantage of all of the other functionality in BOM tables. And the BOM quantity itself is the property, set for each member in a welded component, in this case, the length. So we can now use whatever property we want, and keeping up with standards is the next one that's always super critical. There was an update to the ISO standards, and particularly with the surface finish symbol. So we've updated SOLIDWORKS, so our surface finish symbol is now up to date with the ISO 21920 standard, and it always saves time using the saved or favorited styles to add those repeated annotations in our drawings. And finally, lots of users end up exporting DXFs and DWGs to bring them into other editing programs. And we're making that process faster. So now in SOLIDWORKS 2025, there's a new option where when you export those drawings, you can actually have each drawing view become its own block. So often when you'd want to open up a drawing in a DXF or DWG editor like DraftSight here, the first thing you'd have to do is kind of group all the entities in each view together to be able to move them around. But now we take care of that for our SolidWorks users. And that just about wraps us up for what I want to share with drawings today. But as everybody's already mentioned, make sure you go check out those reseller sessions, check out all the what's new documentation. A lot of really great things for drawings this year.
Yeah, and speaking of DraftSight has its own slate of enhancements. I know we're not really covering that so much during this episode. You showed DraftSight just a moment ago, but there's actually kind of a cool enhancement I'm aware of. So they have a block structure palette that they've implemented in 2025 where you can view, isolate, and modify various elements of blocks and blocks within blocks. So definitely check that out, solidworks.com/what's new, like Gian's mentioning here. Gian, I mentioned with dimensioning and detailing, right? There's different ways people do it. We've primarily focused on 2D in that respect, but I want to kind of transition to 3D, right? So we've also made several improvements to 3D dimensioning and tolerancing within the Dim Expert tool, right? Available within our 3D environments. So could we go through some of those enhancements?
Yes, of course. And first, for any of you who aren't familiar with Dim Expert, it's a set of tools used to automate the application of datums, dimensions, tolerances directly in your 3D models in SolidWorks. So it walks you through kind of step by step, first defining your datums, your primary, secondary, tertiary, and then many of your dimensions, if not all of them, and annotations are created automatically for you in accordance with the standard GD&T rules and principles. Now, of course, you can always edit them, you can manually add them if you'd like, but having this automation just makes it so much easier for engineers to adopt these model-based definition or MBD workflows with documenting their designs. The first thing I'll touch on in regards to SolidWorks 2025 is the fact that MBD is now an add-in. Just like Toolbox, CircuitWorks, routing, and all the other amazing add-ins we have in SolidWorks. And yes, that means transferring a license of MBD from one user to another will be much easier and smoother now. Now, when it comes to adding dimensions to drafted features, it used to take multiple steps to end up with the multiple dimensions required to define those kinds of features. But now we can create both a draft angle and a width dimension at the same time from a single command, just using a wedge size dimension. Makes it quick and easy to fully define those types of features. And this is just one of a couple enhancements to the Dim Expert functionality I have to share. So the other one that I wanted to share is one that many of our users have been asking for a little while now. And that is the ability to create Dim Expert dimensions from sketches and features. So in SolidWorks 2025, this is now possible. Simply select the features and sketches you want to, and you want to pull the dimensions from, and then select those available dimensions you'd like to create annotations for. And of course, you can always rearrange them how you wish. And then the last final MBD enhancement I want to cover today is a couple export step 242 controls. So there's two new options. One for splitting periodic faces like cones and cylinders into multiple phases, and one for exporting the face and edge properties. And both of these settings aim to provide better fidelity when you're using the exported files in other applications downstream, like for mold design, simulation, and more. In this example, I've just opened up this step 242 back in SolidWorks to show how our cylindrical and conical faces are now split. And that about wraps us up for MBD in SolidWorks 2025. And if you haven't checked out Dim Expert before, definitely go give that a try in 2025 or whatever version you're using today. And I think you'll be surprised how easy it is to pick up some of these MBD workflows.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat +1. Nice on the MBD items. Seeing some people join for the first time. So if you're just joining now, welcome. Welcome, Dennis. But Gian, thank you so much for jumping on. I was really looking forward to this section. Once again, very core to SolidWorks detailing and documentation is. And you did a great job. So thanks for jumping on, man.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
For sure. You know, when our team got a chance to really dig into the Proteus data set, one of the things that we so admired about Paul Vizio, the director of hardware there, and really his entire team's 3D modeling was really the level of detail. For us, a great reminder that a machine measuring our power output needs to receive sufficient power was well-documented cable layouts, of course, wire diagrams, PCB assemblies, and much more. And here to explore that whole world of ECAD and what we as SOLIDWORKS users have to look forward to in SOLIDWORKS 2025 is my 3D Experience World 2021 co-host, Brian Zayas.
Sean,
Brian, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, I am amped to be here.
I know several of us in the chat are going to love that pun. Not sure you guys saw that one coming, but say hello to Brian. Brian, great to have you here. So I want to start off with really I guess laying the groundwork sort of question here. And really that's, how does SolidWorks, the leader of MCAD, relate broadly to ECAD?
Well, I had a different answer, but then I'm watching Gian's awesome demo, great job, and I'm thinking that, well, MCAD and ECAD, they're actually more similar than they are different, right? You have to have the right level of detail relevant to what you're making for the production of the real-life product. So you look at Proteus. They're utilizing off-the-shelf cables and connectors. You can see here, I imagine they look familiar to everyone here who's worked on a similar type of project. Now, as a mechanical engineer, I want this in my model, right? I want to be able to determine, are my connectors and cables going to be able to fit? Are the clearances sufficient? Like, how much room is there in and around the mechanisms and the enclosures? And of course, what about finger clearances during assembly? So fantastic work by the team. It's really a marvel. And at a basic level, you can see inside there are 3 electromagnetic breaks in the Proteus. There's cables that create the interconnects, and those cables are bundled and routed together. We go through the main shaft that Mark Peterson showed us. We add in the AC power down there, some fusing, and we ultimately convert that to a DC power. And then the primary enclosure is where the logic, or maybe the magic, happens that provides that exact continuous resistance experience of a Proteus system. So definitely, even as a mechanical engineer, I need all these details because of that instinct to have a complete model. So that wiring that you just saw, that's all SolidWorks electrical.
It's funny you mentioned SolidWorks electrical. It's weird. It seems like yesterday that we introduced it as a product, but I think about it wasn't, right? Like it
10,
was
11 years, 12 years maybe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot of I don't know the exact number, but it was a lot of years ago now. But since then it's kind of enjoyed this widespread adoption among SolidWorks customers, I would say, especially in the last few years. And I understand that in this release, right, there are some really awesome improvements in that area when it comes to both electrical design and documentation, right?
Yeah, I mean, even before electrical, we had electrical routing, but electrical designers need more than just 3D models of the cables and the connectors. Again, going back into the Proteus, there are dozens of conductors that are carrying DC voltage supply and signals between the electromagnetic breaks, Hall sensors, circuit boards. So SolidWorks Electrical is how an electrical engineer would capture their design intent with circuit schematics, line diagrams. All of these components here have the complete electrically relevant details. So one of my new favorite features in 2025 is a new Excel import for manufacturer parts and cables. You can create cable references and manufacturer parts in your library with all the full electrical details. So this really accelerates creating new off-the-shelf assets, for example, setting up this Proteus. Now what's nice is we can bring in all these details for our manufacturer parts, and it'll include all the circuit information. So for my AC plug, well, there's 3 circuits. And if you bring in cables, it'll bring in all the cable cores. So you can see that electrical understands underneath each of the symbolic representations how it's connected from a circuit standpoint. Okay, let's do some electrical work on our multi-line schematic. We're going to add in a splice so we can extend the power supply ground to the chassis as well as to the circuit board. So we're just going to add that onto the wire. We're going to add that all to our harness 1. That's our primary base harness. And then I'm going to flip over to 3D, and I'm going to associate the splice component from my schematic in my CAD model. And then simple route of the harness. It takes about 20 seconds or so, but I'll skip it for the demo today. Next, what do you want to do? We want to flatten this to create a form board drawing for manufacturing. SolidWorks 2025 has a lot of projects that increase power, performance, user experience. For example, loop prevention. It's going to use existing sketch segments instead of adding new sketch lines when you have spliced components, so it avoids loops. We're going to be able to flatten complex splices and multi-circuit splices even better through performance enhancements, new on-screen manipulators to make sure that my flattened view is exactly how I want to lay it out, because that becomes the primary view for my drawing. The ultimate goal is to create the flattened drawing for manufacturing, and there's been several enhancements here, Sean, for improving harness board drawings with better behavior, better updates, more items that I can control in the flattened root items property manager, and just better quality results when changing in 3D. So I make it in 3D and I take it back to SolidWorks, and this is another great enhancement. There's now a dynamic drawing link. Once I save my SolidWorks drawing, instantly updates back in electrical. So it's going to save time, and it also means I can do more on the electrical side as maybe the electrical engineer. So maybe I didn't like what the SolidWorks user did. So I can locally edit with a brand new set of annotation tools, including redoing the balloons, maybe with my electrical item numbers, or re-adding the tables on the electrical tool side in the way that I want to add them. What's really nice is this drawing I'm working on now is now an intelligent 3D drawing. So each component footprint acts as a block, like Gian just hinted at. So in this final PDF project output with all the details, the same graphical representation for the component is used throughout. Line diagram, multi-line schematic, even the flattened board. So this is kind of just a quick taste of electrical. This is the tool that you would use to capture all those types of design intents and generate the wide variety of deliverables: line diagram, complete parts list, cable list, lengths, pin to pin, connector details, all these things that electrical teams need to develop. And of course, flattened harness board drawings for each of the main 4 harnesses in the Proteus.
So a lot of new features, definitely a lot of cool stuff there. But to circle back, I think to our original point or our original topic, the sort of linkage between MCAD and ECAD, SolidWorks users are having to work with cables, wires, connectors, all sorts of electrical style components. And one area that I wanted to bring up here for our next topic is printed circuit boards, right? It's not unheard of for SolidWorks customers to have to integrate PCBs into their designs. And for many, that means maybe having to design the PCBs themselves. So for our customers, our audience out there who handle PCBs really in any fashion, can you talk us through some exciting improvements that we have in this area for SolidWorks 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the Proteus itself, there are really 2 distinct types of ECAD, aren't there? One is the wiring connectors that's handled by electrical, like as you just saw. The other is printed circuit boards. So remember, inside the base, and by the way, I'll use my large design review breadcrumbs. Thank you, Mike Sandy. But inside the base is the primary PCB that provides kind of that magic logic for the continuous experience. So SolidWorks CircuitWorks is how we import and interchange with the PCB engineer. Now, specifically with 2025, SolidWorks supports many more details of the IDX file format. And so this is a single file that allows me to generate a model that's really all I need for my mechanical design. So inside an IDX file are baseline or potentially incremental details like board outline, hole size, location shape, cutouts, keepouts, component height. All this information is used by SolidWorks to build this full model in just a few minutes. Now, it does take a couple minutes to generate, so I already did it in this demo. Bring it into my enclosure design, and honestly, that's really all I need to finalize the sheet metal and maybe the thermal cooling. Simple to update this model as the design changes and progresses, and even if I don't take the time to set up any kind of fancy component libraries, the single IDX file gives me pretty much all I need. And you can go further. And with 2025, even more details of a PCB can be imported with the IDX file format, including the complete modeling of all the copper trace data from every board layer. And you can see here the little red preview before I build it. Now, this one takes about 10 minutes to build, so I definitely fast forward in this one. But just look at that full fidelity, all the copper traces. There are so many downstream analyses cases that open up when you have access to the fully detailed model, and a a little birdie told me we might get to see that with Peter here in just a moment. But just to back up real quick, Sean, I do have an important announcement. I'm honored to be able to share with everyone. So it's super apparent, like you mentioned. I mean, ECAD, MCAD collaboration, it's all around us. No matter where we go, there's going to be a circuit board involved, and SolidWorks R&D, they want to be at the heart of facilitating that. So super excited to announce that CircuitWorks add-in that I was just showing, that's going to be included starting in 2025 with all levels of SolidWorks. So even SolidWorks Standard, which traditionally you had to go to Pro or Premium for CircuitWorks, everyone's going to have it even Standard. So all of you take advantage of CircuitWorks whenever you get a chance.
Awesome. Plus one in the chat if you guys work with PCBs at all, and let us know, with a couple thoughts, couple insights, how you're working with PCB data. We'd love to hear it. We're keeping our eyes on the chat here. But yeah, let's talk about some further integrations. We talked with Bruce and John, our leaders in R&D, about this moments ago in this episode, how a large focus of their improvements and their efforts within SolidWorks is making it so that a lot of the sort of industry-leading desktop solutions that you guys are using out there, like SolidWorks CAD, like a SolidWorks Electrical, like a SolidWorks PDM, sort of can integrate well with these sort of broader horizons that we see in our cloud offerings on 3D Experience. So I wanted to ask you, Brian, is there anything new there from the perspective of ECAD collaboration in this sort of broader 3D Experience Works portfolio?
The first thing that comes to mind, we're all really excited. We've been talking a lot about our strategic partnership with Cadence, which uses the IDX format as the interchange format in a more agile back and forth with PCB engineers if they're using Cadence, OrCAD, or Allegro, and it's connected to 3D Experience platform. So platform-based collaborations means pushing to, pulling from 3D Experience as the server, and that even extends to automating collaborative tasks, which is fantastic because that's how we manage all our to-do items. Now, another thing with 2025 that I really like is the library synchronization between CircuitWorks and Cadence on the 3D Experience platform, so teams can create unified product representations. Of course, as you're already seeing, this unlocks a host of downstream Dassault system capabilities, including more than a few different flavors of simulation. Again, today I'm not the simulation expert, but next up. But anyway, I guess, Sean, I know my time's getting short. I just wanted to remind everyone watching, talk to your electrical team, let them know about electrical. But on the PCB front, I would just say with 2025, if your PCB team is using Cadence, great, get connected through 3D Experience. But at a minimum, ask your PCB team if they can exchange with you in the IDX file format, because that's how you're going to get the most fidelity in your model in SolidWorks 2025.
Great tech tip. Yeah, I see somebody saying, there you go. Awesome. So a lot of plus ones here in response to our little prompt there. So thank you all for participating in the chat, for viewing. Actually, the end of that segment worked quite nicely because we are actually headed into SolidWorks simulation. So Brian, thank you so much for jumping on. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Sean.
So once again, one thread we're going to pull on a bit more now in this next section. You have the design, whether it's MCAD and ECAD, whatever it is. But for a lot of you, it is, right? It's MCAD and ECAD data. How can you test it at that point, once you have that design? And how does that maybe look differently in SolidWorks 2025 today versus what was on the market prior to this latest release? So Brian, as we just saw, he couldn't help but veer into this topic as we ended the last section on ECAD with our next expert, Peter Chilbotin. I think we're finally ready, though, to dive deeply into how SolidWorks 2025 is helping us ensure accuracy while raising that bar for performance within our designs and our performance studies. Welcome on, Peter.
Hey, Sean, great to see you as always, man.
100%. So, staying on that thread, like we just mentioned, of what we were discussing with Brian, there are many analyst level capabilities available to SolidWorks users these days, correct? You think about, once again, the PCB example that we just used. My question for you to kick us off here is, how can select SolidWorks or select simulation tools rather be used there?
Well, it's a great question, Sean, because there's really so much analysis we can do in the PCB space. And I mean, one of the obvious places to start would be electromagnetics. And we can look at this game controller that I think was shown in one of Brian's clips earlier. Well, to start with, we do have that partnership with Cadence, and that's great. It makes it very easy to bring in those Cadence files. But I'll say on the electromagnetic side, whether you're using Cadence, Altium, Mentor Graphics, Zukin, any of the major EDA packages, we can bring in the entire board design, every trace, every via, every component, and that lets us simulate the performance of the board. And one thing we would look at is power integrity. Today's PCBs have so many components with really tight power requirements, we can actually trace power loss through the board, and in this case, look at the power loss or voltage drop as the voltage is delivered from the charging port to the integrated circuit or chip there. And then we can define pass-fail criteria for that. Now, not just power, but actual communication signals as well. When we talk about signal integrity, we're talking about actually looking at the zeros and ones of the data signal we're sending down, and this might be from the chip to the USB port. Well, in the top right there, you can actually see the received and the transmitted signals. The received signals are smaller. Those are the zeros and ones. We're losing some voltage there. But what we really look at is what we call an eye diagram in the bottom right. And that shows with the periodic signal how quick it's rising and falling and sort of jittering. And as long as we're outside of that purple mask area, we should be okay with the zeros and ones being picked up correctly. And I mean, finally, because we're calculating that power loss right within the electromagnetics package, we can run really detailed thermal analysis. The entire board model, all the copper, all the layers, all the components, and we can very quickly find out those operating temperatures. But the last thing I'll mention, this is important for anybody with electronics in their products, meeting emissions regulations, what we call EMC compliance. And this in the US is dealt with by the FCC, but worldwide there's various different organizations. Essentially, we're talking about emitting energy from these electronic devices and preventing interference with other ones. Well, it's typically done in a physical test lab, like you just saw, very expensive. We can get ahead of this by going in and doing this virtually. We can actually place a whole sphere of probes, you see in the top left there. That's testing all the different orientations of emissions, and we can very quickly check if the radiated emissions are going to comply with the FCC limits or not. And about 50% of products don't pass EMC the first time. So this is a really crucial way for customers to get in front of this with simulation. It's way faster, way cheaper than just doing trial and error lab trips. So there's really a lot we can learn from PCBs just from an electromagnetics standpoint, but that's not all we can do. We can also talk about structures. We talked about using the electromagnetics engineer role to get a thermal distribution or thermal study of that. We could take that thermal map and export it into our structures tools on the platform to do a thermal stress analysis, find out stresses from thermal expansion. We could use fluid dynamics engineer to go in and run some really complex flow or cooling studies on it. And we really have some great packages we put together to try to make these simulation tools a little bit easier for our customers to pick up. And they're what we call the simulation value offers. And we've bundled these tools into groups that will really, for every skill level, from a basic designer that might need a little bit of sim to a multiphysics analyst who's there every day, all day, living and breathing sim, we have a package for you. So guys, reach out to your local SolidWorks partner and find out more about our simulation value offers.
Yeah, I think it's important to know, and thank you so much for that that level of instruction, really, Peter, and that insight that you gathered. I think it was really important to note that because of something that Steve mentioned earlier, just that level of optionality that you have depending on what you need, depending on the use case that you have within your own products. I think a neighborhood today that I'd love to drift over to here within simulation. It's most familiar, possibly, but definitely most topical for this episode is SolidWorks simulation. So, Peter, within SolidWorks simulation products, maybe we could sort of conversationally go through these here. We've made a lot of efforts, like I mentioned, at the sort of lead into this section, to ensure that duality between best ever performance while maintaining peak accuracy in 2025. Can we explore here some of the ways that we've accomplished this across the SolidWorks simulation portfolio?
Definitely. Well, let's start with some speed, and we'll talk about spring connectors, or sorry, accuracy. Well, spring connectors are great for simulating actual springs, but also simulating big portions of a model that you don't want to simulate. And in the Proteus, that might be the entire long arm section. We care about the overall stiffness, but we don't need to model it. Well, now we can go in and define separate orthogonal stiffness in each orthogonal direction for those spring connectors, which makes them much more accurate for applications like these. Now, it's not just spring connectors. We also have some great accuracy enhancements to pin connectors. And when you're defining a pin connector with no translation, that with retaining ring option, we now have the option to do not just a rigid coupling, but what we would call a distributed coupling as well, which spreads the load out a little bit more over the end faces there, and again, leads to more accuracy for our users. And it's great to see these enhancements that make things more accurate. Anytime we can improve our accuracy, I'm all for it.
It is. I would say that those two, namely, so we do a sort of an early preview for our user group leaders and champions program members. I know those two were definitely called out when we did a bit of a demo on some of the features as some of the favorites on the SolidWorks simulation side in 2025. But we talked about some enhancements in the way of accuracy. Let's get to that second part. Where we're speeding up. I know we have some meshing improvements in some areas, as well as some other speedy enhancements.
Yeah, we've got some great ways we can speed analyses up in 2025. And I'll start with actually some pre-processing stuff, excluding stuff from analysis. And we've had the exclude from analysis tool for a long time, but sometimes you don't just want to exclude one part. You might have 50 parts and you only want to simulate 3 of them. Well, instead of suppressing 47 parts, you can now pick the parts that you need and then right click and say exclude others from analysis. And this is going to knock out everything else from the model. So that's a nice one. We also have that meshing improvement that you guys are seeing right now. With the blended curvature-based mesher, we have some improvements when meshing parts with multiple identical parts in them. And when that happens, we can see a speed improvement of up to 15% on this. So no changes at all, other than just behind the scenes, do the exact same thing, but 15% faster.
Yeah, and we saw in a very simple case there, right? 15% faster. Each model, each assembly, each part could be a bit different depending on the geometry, the meshing, a lot of different factors, right? In the study setup for sure. But still, 15% is quite a lot when you consider, the amount of different sort of data sets that can contain identical geometry. So. That's a pretty big
honestly, anything helps. And I mean, if you look back at 15% this year, the speed enhancements we got last year, the year before, cumulatively, the speed enhancements really add up over time. So we'll take anything we can get on speed enhancements.
And we know in terms of study setup, anyone that's set up an FEA study knows that how context, how parts are bonded to one another, bodies. That's a big area as well, and I know we have some enhancements to explore in 2025 there.
We do, and we've actually got some improvements for accuracy to both the node to surface contact and surface to surface contact. So when we're doing node to surface contact between parts with gaps in them, so if we look here between the beam and this little bracket on the side, we have a gap. You don't have to do anything to make this change. We just have a more accurate algorithm for calculating that bonded contact, node to surface contact with a gap. Now, similarly, in the surface-to-surface contact, we have accuracy improvements when we're looking at spherical, conical, or cylindrical surfaces. So basically, round-type surfaces are now more accurate with surface-to-surface contact. So again, great things we're doing behind the scenes. They're not going to they're not night and day differences, but they are improvements to make things more accurate while helping you get that accurate answer quicker.
Yep, and that's the focus, really, right, of some of these enhancements. And it's interesting, Peter. When we demonstrated a lot of the enhancements that we chose, and it's hard to pick, but chose to highlight for user group leaders and champions. I know one of the things that I was mentioning, even our VARs across the world, we unveiled these what's new materials to them to help you guys around the world sort of understand how to best leverage these features. I made sure to mention that even though we're talking SolidWorks simulation, this also includes areas like SolidWorks plastics, right, and SolidWorks flow simulation. So, what do we have in those two areas?
100%. We can't forget about plastics or flow. And I mean, let's start with SolidWorks Plastics, everyone's favorite injection molding simulation tool. We have some really nice new enhancements here, guys, again, in the accuracy side. So we have some new warpage results that you can use to really let you study the effects of unbalanced cooling, orientation effects, and non-uniform shrinkage as well. But another big predictive tool that we use here is predicting sink marks, which can be structural and cosmetic as well. We have a whole new sink mark solver in Plastics 2025 to get improved accuracy for your sink mark prediction. Now, just like we've talked about the enhancements in plastics, we also have, last but not least, enhancements in flow simulation as well. What we get with flow simulation this year is a nice pre-processing speed up for large assemblies. And if you guys have ever worked with large assemblies in flow simulation, you know it can be a little bit taxing. What we're going to see this year is faster basic operations like opening models, creating projects, cloning projects, etc. It's all going to be faster than you're used to. We also have some meshing improvements in 2025. We have some faster meshing for some specific geometry types. In fact, speed increases specifically when meshing what we call convergent faceted geometry or STL type geometry. So if you guys are using those, you will notice some speed enhancements there as well. And it's really, as I guess the theme of this whole release is, it's about making things more accurate and helping you get that accurate answer quicker.
Awesome. I have to say, I always learn something whenever we have our chats. As, of course, never we're doing our live streams. So +1 in the chat if you learned something from Peter here today on the topic of 3D experience-based simulation or SolidWorks simulation, as we did in a number of different facets. So once again, Peter, thank you so much for jumping on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean.
You know, getting a product like the Proteus to market, it's a tough task, as you guys can imagine, and really can attest to within your own product lines and your own industries. But as we know, the journey doesn't really stop there. If your Proteus having amazing household names, you know, these superstar athletes using your product, that certainly helps. But in my opinion, so does the ability to make hyper-realistic renderings from your CAD, just like you've seen all throughout this episode and its lengthy promotion out on social media. So here to join us to discuss product visualization in SolidWorks 2025 is my friend, Jesse Sprague. Jesse, welcome onto the show.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Good to see you.
Absolutely, man. So, you know, the focus, we talk about this, you know, the focus of rendering software is often to export media, you know, or output media, right? Think imagery or video, hyper-realistic, you know, stuff to put in your presentations, all sorts of different use cases. And, you know, one benefit of SolidWorks Visualize, our flagship desktop rendering solution, is that it's always had its own interface with its own buttons, its own capabilities, you know, kind of making up that full user experience. But that's, you know, you think about it, sometimes maybe that's a bit of a hindrance when it comes to, you know, getting that CAD file to the output image, right? Because you're kind of changing context in that way, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you've got sort of another software to learn, right, to be able to do that. So I'll agree with you there, although I'll then immediately backpedal.
I know I can only get you so far.
Right. If there is anybody on the line that hasn't opened Visualize and you have it, I would encourage you to do that. And in fact, I'll go a step further and say, get a hold of your reseller and get into a class for that product, because I do feel like Visualize is a product that you can get very little direction and you can end up with really nice results at the end of that small amount of this is the way you go. So I'll put that caveat in there. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, and I have heard that too. Certainly there are times when you're just working in SolidWorks and it's like, I just need to spiff this up for a presentation or for the website. I don't want to have to, you know, suddenly right now I've never used Visualize, jump into a new tool and figure out where all the buttons are. And this year we've added something that will actually help in that area. We've added API access to Visualize. So in this example that you see here, I'm using a macro to just do a background render directly out of SolidWorks. All right, so you can use this functionality. This is API access, so you can customize this exactly to the way that you want to use it. Again, this is just an example, but you can see this is a very common scenario where you're just working along and say, I suddenly need something for a presentation. I just, in this case, I'm using my mouse gestures, swipe over, I get my rendering to whatever folder I've set it to, and then I can just drag and drop those into my presentation and head over to my meeting, right? So there are definitely those cases when you're wanting to do that either just on the fly, or maybe it's a case where you've got tons of these to do, right, for your website gallery or something like that, and it doesn't make sense to open up the model every time and visualize and have to add all of that time and effort in the software itself. You just need a cleaned up version of it, and you need a bunch of them, or you just need a quick, perfect application right there.
Yeah, Brian, who was on earlier, and myself, we did an episode of SolidWorks Live Design, our other streaming series that we do once a month on the SolidWorks API. So you can check that out on our YouTube.
Yeah.
We were talking, maybe we should do a Visualize API
That'd be cool.
episode maybe next year. Yeah.
Yeah, you could teach me some stuff because I just have that one example to use. That's as far as I can get. I'm not good with programming, so you can help me out there.
Likewise on the Visualize side.
Perfect.
Continue
We make a
to
great team, as always, Sean.
Yeah, yes. But let's talk about Visualize for its own sake, right?
Yeah.
Visualize itself. What are some of the major enhancements within SolidWorks Visualize in 2025?
Yeah, well, we've been going here for a while, so we'll try to go quick. But we've mentioned one already a couple times in this process. We had Kara Tucker, I think, mentioned it in the intro video if you were on the stream before we started, and also John Sweeney at the top of the show mentioned this as well. So I'll just rapid fire through my top 3 kind of enhancements. But the first one is that one, and we can just kind of bask in the glory of this side by side. So this is me just kind of moving the model around in regular accurate mode, and you can see how much noise there is every time you move the model. It's got to rerun all of those passes. As soon as we switch into the 2025 fast mode, you see that denoising kick in, and I can see exactly what I'm doing as I'm moving that around. It's essentially instant. So setting up complex things and also just quick renders. We also have the ability to use a faded floor option, which is excellent for keeping the exact lighting, but isolating just the model. Great for web presentations, things like that. So you can see isolating those individual elements and compositing. Now here we see an example of improved GLTF work in Visualize, and we'll see a lot greater consistency with that particular file format. That's just an independent 3D file format. That's just like a universal graphics file, right? In that example you see in a PowerPoint presentation, we're actually using the 3D model that's been exported out of Visualize right within our PowerPoint. But that's great for all of this stuff that's kind of on the horizon, right? We've got all of the web stores that have interactive 3D things going on right now. You've got all of your interactive AR, VR, stuff like that. It's all using those intermediate formats like GLTF, and you'll see a lot nicer consistency between what you're looking at in the software, in our software, and when you're bringing those in and sending them out. So really nice few, I guess, enhancements for this year.
And like you mentioned, you're alluding to it here. If you go to the SolidWorks PDF, what's new in SolidWorks PDF file. If you go to solidworks.com/what's new, you'll see a ton of more enhancements there. But Jesse, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure a lot of us learned that you're an expert in many things. One of them is of course hosting 3D Experience World live with me. So. Probably the next time that everyone sees us on camera together will be in February in Houston. So be sure to subscribe if you're and hopefully you can actually be there. So stop by the live desk if you are. But Jesse, thank you so much for jumping on here.
Absolutely. Great to see you, Sean.
All right, everyone. We've reached the end. Hundreds of you still here, and we so thank you for that. And thank you to all of you. I just want to say that pointedly. First, for your continued choice to leverage SolidWorks in helping to make your amazing designs come to life. And secondly, for making this worldwide design community what it is today. But please, let's hold that thought right there. I want to drift back to it. So remember to visit solidworks.com/what's new after the episode to watch all of the technical highlight videos, as well as to learn more about how Proteus Motion is using products like SolidWorks CAD and beyond to help their own customers hit their lifestyle and fitness goals through the use of their products. Okay, let's drift backwards. All right, so we are mere months away from 3D Experience World 2025 in Houston, Texas, where thousands of SolidWorks users will assemble to learn from, network, and be inspired by today's leading technologies and technologists. But if you're looking for a taste of this from the comfort of your own home, your office, your shop, or hey, even your own drift trike, and you're probably wondering, why does he keep talking about drifting? Slug Me 9, it's coming. It's coming your way on YouTube on Thursday, October 24th, to deliver a high-speed event packed with innovation, learning, and fun. All this centered around, of course, SolidWorks and all of you, our user community. Now, if you're confused, again, by all the talk of drifting still, that was intentional, because the big data set, the big build, it's around a drift trike, and you're going to see that in just a moment. So please be sure to subscribe to the channel, and you'll see a short trailer once again in just a moment. Thank you once again to you, all of our presenters, and our production team. We will see you next month at Slug Me. Here's the trailer.
Jason, are you ready for Slug Me?
Yeah, let's get it.
Dude, you said this was Wasteland attire.
Yikes. Sorry, dude. Think the face paint might have been a bit much.
Yeah, really?